Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. Today, I'm joined by Nils, who is an amazing master coach and also a very good friend of mine. And we want to talk to you about the topic of integration. And integration can be integrating from various non-ordinary states of consciousness, which we will discuss a little bit more during the episode. So many people focus on the journey or the ceremony, the peak experience, but very few understand what happens after the gentle, the messy moments, the mystical human process of finding your way back into real life. And today we are here to talk about the various aspects of how to navigate this process and how to get into integration work so that the process is seamless from the peak experience to grounding back into reality. So welcome on board, Nils.
Welcome, thank you. So Nassima, out of that experience, when we're discussing, we know lots of people who went through those type of experience. And when we hear about them, what they are seeking is getting clarity of those experiences. And yet, what they're facing is a lot of confusion. Why is that?
That's a good question. Thank you so much. So this is actually pretty normal. When you are going through a non-ordinary state of consciousness, whether it's through plant medicine work or a very deep meditation work or a out-of-body experience, various types of non-ordinary states of consciousness, your brain is changing. There are new neural pathways that are building. Old frameworks are almost dissolving or melting or changing or transforming. So as this happens in your brain and also at the somatic level, on the body level, what tends to happen is that when you come out of the peak experience, you are in effect a different person. Because a lot of messages have been downloaded, a lot of visions have been received, but also your brain has been busy working in the background, kind of rewiring itself. So this is why sometimes when people get out of these experiences, there's a sense of overwhelm or confusion, because all of a sudden it's almost like, what do I do with all of these insights, and where do I turn, where do I start? So that's actually pretty common. The other thing that happens as well is as your brain is rewiring itself, your meaning-making structures change. So what the way that your brain used to create meaning out of stimulus, out of experiences, out of relationships, that has switched. In some instances, it switches dramatically, and in others, it's a little bit more subtle. So it takes a bit of adjustment to kind of relearn how to create meaning, perhaps with the same stimulus, but from a different cognitive perspective. And then at the end of the day, your nervous system is kind of catching up. Because when you are in a non-ordinary state of consciousness, what might have been a couple of hours in this timeline might have felt like a very long time in that state of consciousness. You might have felt that you've traveled for years, and then you come back and it's almost like you're crash landing from space, and all of a sudden what you see, it feels different. You are receiving it differently because your nervous system is kind of like readjusting to its new state as well. So all of this can lead people to feel that sense of confusion, and really all it needs is a readjustment, a retuning, a fine-tuning of the radio station. And this is why integration is so important.
Awesome. So clearer still, in the context of confusion, let's take your personal experience. How that confusion did materialize in your day-to-day activity and with your friends and colleagues, or all of that experience?
That's a challenging one, actually, because as you return from a peak experience, first of all, you yourself individually are going through a lot of change. There is a period after a peak experience, usually it's about 2 weeks' time, when your brain is more malleable. So during that time, what you want to do before you even get back into with your family, your relationships, your friends, you actually want to spend some time calibrating yourself. And during those initial first 2 weeks, this is the time which is the most important, and the time where you can actually embed the rewiring and the new ways of being that you want to feel in day-to-day life. And then when it comes to adjusting that with your relationships, it's a matter of communicating it with others in a way where they can receive it. You know, your downloads might have been extremely grand and highly spiritual, very heightened, and you may not yet have the vocabulary to convey that to others. So it's kind of like finding smaller narratives, simpler ways of explaining it. And sometimes it's just a matter of telling to others, look, I've been through a very big experience and I'm still learning to kind of recalibrate at the moment. And sometimes you might say, I need a bit of time and I'll get back to you. Or you might take a bit of space. I think it's important in that moment, especially that very malleable moment, to do what it takes for you to integrate and ground, and then go out and kind of engage with others.
Clear. So bringing it back at the personal level make a significant change. When someone experiences such a profound shift, some of those people will be seeking for more, seeking for an extra experience, an add-on, keeping the peak experience going further. Why that question comes so often in those processes, in that journey?
Yes, so sometimes when you've had a peak experience and it's been super positive and super heart-opening, or the alternative, it could have been very difficult and very challenging. Whatever the peak experience has been, it is easy to confuse that with my journey wasn't complete. It is easy to think that there's a sense of incompleteness. And actually, that's not the case. Because whatever has been revealed in your experience is what had to be revealed for what you can cope with at this point in time. And very often, and I've had those experiences myself, where I am in the middle of a process and I feel like I've got a mountain to climb and I've climbed it, but I know there's still a few more hills to go. But then I start, I either get out of the dream, or my meditation session stops, or the experience, my journey kind of starts going down, and I wake up and I feel like, this was really good, but I wanted to go deeper, or I wanted to do more work. So this can lead people to think I need more. And this is where integration is really, really key, because before you go for more, before you go for deeper, the question is, how are you going to apply your learnings from what you have learned so far? And it's really important for people to have that discernment and that self-regulating mechanism. And this is where an integration coach or a friend or even a psychologist or anybody that understands what these states can trigger in you can help to ground you back. So discernment is important. Taking time to integrate what you've learned in the now for a period of time is important, because if you run too quickly to the next one, it can actually lead to fragmentation. When you haven't integrated those very, very deep and powerful experiences properly enough, you can actually run to the next experience, and then you don't have the tools to contain what is now shown to you, and you come back even more confused.
So it's neither good, neither not good, just about taking the time, taking the time to integrate.
Exactly. There's no good or bad, and it's just a matter of ask yourself, what is the intent? Why do I feel like I need more? And there's no right or wrong answer here, but the intent will give you a clue as to, are you seeking the next high, or are you seeking to do the deeper work? In which case, do you actually need another peak experience for that? Can you do it in a different modality, in a different way, by grounding yourself back to this reality that you're in? So ask yourself that question: what is my intent? What's compelling me to want to go to more?
You mentioned intention, and in your book you mentioned also meaning-making, and previously you mentioned also that meaning-making. Meaning seems to be a really central part of that integration. Can you tell us more about what is it?
Yes. So we all have narratives in our minds, right? We've all been conditioned We've grown up in a certain environment. We've gone to certain schools. We have stories that we've been building from the moment that we're born. From the moment that we're born, from the moment that we are 2, 3 years old, our parents are telling us, this is who you are, this is your name, this is the community that you belong to, and we build those stories, and these stories serve as anchor points for us as adults. As we grow into adulthood, we find ourselves, we find our sense of comfort and safety in these stories. Now, whether these stories are true or not, that's a different topic. And we talk a lot about, we're all conditioned, conditioning is bad. But actually, conditioning is not bad. Conditioning is just conditioning. It's anchor points. It's places where we can go back to remember certain things that happen in our lives that give us a sense of meaning. It is exactly the same. If you are, for example, in a plant medicine experience, you will be exposed to so many new data points, so many new stories and visuals and insights that will unravel about yourself that you may not know. So once you're back from that state, and it's not just a medicine experience, it could be a past life regression therapy session. It could be through an out-of-body experience, where all of a sudden you're traveling in an astral world and you're seeing things from a different angle, right? When you come back, if you're not sitting and taking the time to ask yourself, what was it trying to show me? And what can I do with this to be better, be more insightful, serve others more? Because the whole point of spirituality is not to serve ourselves. At the end of the day, it's in service of others, of the community, of our families, of people that we look after. So really the question is, how do I make meaning with all of these new data points? And how does that match up to who I thought I was? So the old storylines, the old narratives. Neither is better or worse. It's just a matter of integrating the both, and then picking and choosing the elements that resonate the most with you at the stage of life that you're in.
Clearer. And still, you are mentioning within that element related to identity, things that we have been conditioned with, and we create that identity that evolves across time. Beautiful. And still, those experiences come and create a shift in our understanding of the world, of how things work, or at least our perception. So how identity and then the shift that happen on it add complexity to the overall integration process.
So what it does is that it sort of like shifts the scaffolding, our inner architecture, I call it in the book, the inner architecture of our psyche and of our old narratives, right? It shifts it because the ground has been shaken. And all of a sudden, what we thought held us together, we're like, oh my goodness, this is actually not what I thought it was. So that then adds complexity, because if somebody is not getting the proper support to integrate their learning and kind of make sense of it, it can either lead to overwhelm, a feeling of overwhelm. In certain cases, people even feel like, I'm going crazy. And if you go to a psychiatrist with that, they will automatically put you on an SSRI and declare it, this is psychosis or schizophrenia. And this is where the concept of spiritual emergency comes from. Spiritual emergencies, or moments like this where your scaffolding is shifting, it doesn't mean that you're going crazy, or it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have a mental health condition. It only means that the ground has been shaken, new information has been unraveled, and now you need to actually sit with all of it and make sense of it and rebuild some of the parts, some of the scaffolds. Add some connecting parts, add a new staircase in one spot, or remove, areas of the scaffold that you don't need anymore. It's literally, there's a cartoon which is called Inside Out, and I'm sure you've watched it. So there's in episode 2, there's a part where the main character You can see the scaffolds, the buildings, the structures in her mind, the ideas, the beliefs starts crumbling down. And all of a sudden it feels like, she cannot control her emotions. She's all over the place. This is exactly what happens here. When you go into certain types of non-ordinary states of consciousness, the ground changes, the scaffold changes, and you need to adapt to that.
I like your analogy with the building and the fact that the ground changing. And also you were mentioning things get removed. Hence, whatever was above struggled to remain with a base that shift. I have lots of friends who went through those type of experience, and it happened that they come with that statement, what experiencing is really too much. And at the opposite, at some moment, they have some great clarity and they bring a different understanding of what is. Hence, to your experience, how can someone make the difference between existential spiral and getting lost in those moments and a sense of awakening or true awakening?
Wow. So first of all, the spirals are part of the process as well. So the spirals are not necessarily a negative thing. They could sometimes be happening in such a wave that feels like, oh my goodness, it's too much. This is where you get, it's too much. I don't know what to do with this. But really what's happened is that the ground has been shaken and you're learning to rebalance. In a new space with new conditions. So where does clarity come from? Clarity actually comes not from peak experiences. In peak experiences, you will be shown things that you probably already knew or you might have buried subconsciously. You'll be shown things in your body that were latent. And many people come back and say, a lot of what I was shown felt very familiar, as if I had seen it all before and I had been there before. So what happens in those experiences is that all of this comes to the surface. And then once you're back into your day-to-day life, clarity is the best way to get clarity is, first of all, to accept that even if it feels overwhelming at the moment, it's okay. You're not going crazy. None of this is abnormal. Sit with it. Like the moment you start resisting the feeling of overwhelm, you will feel even more overwhelmed. And clarity comes in the simplest of moments, in taking one step to the kitchen, pouring yourself a glass of water, taking a seat and drinking and breathing, deep breathing. It's in the moments where you're spending with your family at home. It's really clarity, especially when things feel overwhelming. The best way to deal with it is actually to do the bare minimum and go back to basics. The basics that ground you as a human being. So the overwhelm is part of the process in some cases, not in all cases, and it passes with the right guidance and the right protocols. And this is where integration as a process is super helpful. And if it doesn't pass, then seek help. Like ask for help, because there are people that are trained out there that get it and that can actually help you with some protocols and some steps to follow on a daily basis that will help you to get to that space where you're grounded again.
Thanks to your book and whatever you're currently doing, the idea of integration coach were new to me. And I wish I've met some decades ago, because having an integration coach over that process really brings added value, because you were mentioning ground shaking it, and you were adding the fact that on one side there is a kind of pruning. We remove lots of things and we get clarity or we get new insights. So doing both at the same time is often unsettling for people, and working with someone as an integration coach can hugely make a difference.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
You were mentioning that integration is about taking the time, being patient. still, you were also mentioning it's a work. So me facing that type of situation, what does it ask from me to really do the best or really great integration?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's easy to chase peak experiences, right? It's easy to go to lots and lots of retreats, and we know there's a lot of different variety of retreats, some of which are using different modalities, and the retreat. When you finish the retreat, you come back. You are in a different state. The state doesn't keep itself by itself. It needs maintenance and it needs the work. So most of the learning happens after the experience. And it's the same with learning anything, right? You can go and learn how to drive a car, and you do the lessons and you're passing the test. But the real test is once you've got the license in your hand and you now have a car and you need to drive on the real roads for real without an instructor next to you. And you got to go through this period of a little bit of discomfort, like, oh my goodness, like cars are coming, they don't know I'm a learner anymore, and they're just coming. And it's through that discomfort of doing the work and through the learning and through starting to learn new cues and adopt new cues that you're able to build your confidence in driving the car. It is exactly the same thing with our consciousness. Our consciousness is very much like a muscle. Like you don't go to the gym and start lifting heavy weights, intensely for hours and hours for like a couple of days and then expect yourself to have big muscles and not get hurt from overexerting your muscles. So it's the same with our consciousness. Being spiritual and unraveling parts of our consciousness implies that you got to do it in a safe way, psychologically safe way, and in a way where your body can have time to catch up. So non-ordinary states of consciousness don't just work on the mind, it works on every single aspect of the being. And a lot of that work is somatic. So integration then becomes a process of learning to understand what's happening in your body. You might feel, I was just sharing with my friend earlier on, I've been feeling a lot of jaw tightness. And instead of running to go and get painkillers, I've been asking myself, what am I holding? What am I holding? Then I did my research and I found out that jaw tightness is linked to the stomach and the liver. And it's linked to very much when you are constantly containing things or repressing emotions. So you've got to start, part of integration is doing the work to understand what are the cues that are coming up. You might start seeing synchronicities in your life. Like all of a sudden, people that haven't contacted you for ages might all of a sudden give you a call. You might start seeing things crumble down as well. Like you might go back to work and something big has happened. And all of these things are happening for you, in your favor, for the expansion of your consciousness. Because now you've been through the peak experience, you've dabbled into different parts of your consciousness. Now this dimension is telling you, let's put you to the test. Let's get you to drive the car. So it is work, and sometimes it is work that requires a lot of effort, and sometimes it's work that's a lot of fun, because you have new tools in your toolbox, and you have a heightened awareness, and you are more comfortable with discomfort, and therefore that becomes more fun. But yes, it is work, absolutely.
As it is work and it requires exercising, does it mean that it gets easier over time?
Not necessarily. And the right question is not whether it gets easier or harder. The question is, how does it keep changing? Because as you learn new tools and new ways of surrendering and dealing with discomfort and dealing with new insights, as you do more shadow work, your ability and your resilience to stretch the comforts, the edges of your comfort zone changes, and therefore you're able to do more with less sometimes, and at other times you're able to get down to the root cause very quickly. Like you don't have to go into spirals anymore. You literally know, okay, what is this? This is happening for me. This is no doubt about that. What am I supposed to see here. So symbols, archetypes, all of these things start connecting in your brain because you've been doing the work, and it changes. And sometimes it might feel like a repetition of the same work, by the way. Sometimes you might be like, I've been there, I've done this before. Why is this coming up again?
Déjà vu, I did
Yes, yes. And every time you have a déjà vu, it's the déjà vu, but it's at a deeper level.
Great. So to conclude, what would you say as a takeaway?
Look, my main takeaway, and this is my core message of the book, having been through different types of non-ordinary states of consciousness myself, I started my journey with no clue about what integration is, to getting to a point where I was so confused. I was having nightmares, not able to sleep, and I had to find help. When I managed to find an integration coach, the relief I got was absolutely like, I was like, why didn't I know this before? Because it helped so much with just calming my nervous system down. It was priceless. And from there on, I know that before I even do any session, even if it's something as a breathwork session or an ice bath therapy, I know how I can integrate it later or who I can ask for help. And even during the experience, and my friend Sylvie will tell you that because I've done a couple of ice bath therapy sessions with her, and I'm always in fear because my nervous system shuts down and I'm so scared of it. I even know that during the session, what kind of support I need to help me get through it. It is not a joke to be dabbling in experiences with non-ordinary states of consciousness. It's not something we need to take lightly. It's something that will lead to a lot of changes in our lives and in the lives of those around us, because it has a ripple effect. So we really have to be responsible with the how, the when, and the what after.
I love that insight, that group of insight. And within your book, I really appreciate that at the end of each chapter, you were listing tools and processes that you have learned or maybe you have been taught that were helping you. And I was reflecting, me having those whenever I had my personal experience, my mystical experience, I would really have had a greater, faster, simpler integration, that's for sure. So thank you for sharing all of that with us, and thank you for having wrote that book.
Amazing, thank you.